When a narcissist discards you, they think it's final. They imagine you broken, waiting, replaying every word they said. They walk away proud, convinced they've won. But when you stay silent, when you don't chase or crumble, something inside them cracks. That silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to see the emptiness they were trying to outrun. And soon, they start to revalue you, but far too late. At first, they convince themselves they don't care. They post pictures, smile online, act like life is perfect. It's all performance. They need everyone to believe you were the problem. But behind the show, something gnaws at them. They start checking your profile, asking mutual friends about you, even dreaming about you. The person they once discarded suddenly becomes the one thing they can't stop thinking about. Narcissists are driven by ego, not emotion. But silence threatens both. When they can't provoke you, they can't feed off your reaction. That absence creates panic. They start remembering your value, not because they miss your love, but because they miss their control. The revaluation begins not in love, but in fear. Fear that their source of validation might truly be gone forever. Your silence breaks their illusion of superiority. They expect you to beg, cry, or at least respond. But when you don't, it confuses them. They wonder, did I really lose control? Are they happier without me? That thought eats at them. They replay every memory, searching for signs of their power. The narcissist can handle hate, but not indifference. Silence is the only language they can't manipulate. As their ego deflates, they start rewriting the story. Suddenly, you're no longer the problem. They tell themselves you are special, maybe even the best they ever had. They begin to revalue you, not because they've changed, but because they feel rejected. In their world, rejection equals obsession. The less attention you give, the more they crave it. It's the paradox that traps them every time. Revaluation happens fast. One moment, they discard you like trash. The next, they remember you like treasure. They message you casually. Hey, just checking in, or you crossed my mind today. But it's not curiosity. It's testing. They want to see if you'll still respond. If you do, the game restarts. If you don't, they spiral. Their silent timeline begins the second you choose not to play. In that silence, the narcissist becomes restless. They imagine you moving on, smiling, being free. It terrifies them. The control they once had is slipping, and with it, their sense of identity. They start idealizing you again, not as a person, but as a possession they lost. They want back what made them feel powerful. But the timeline has shifted. You're no longer waiting, you're healing. They may even try to convince themselves they let you go for your own good. It's another lie they tell to protect their ego. The truth is, they discarded you, thinking you'd stay broken. But now that you're silent, they can't handle the reflection of your strength. Your peace exposes their chaos. Your calmness becomes the loudest rejection they've ever faced. When they revalue you, they remember the parts of you that fed them. Your empathy, your patience, your understanding. But they forget the parts that hurt them, your boundaries, your voice, your truth. They don't want you as a whole person. They want the version of you that served them. But that version no longer exists. And that's what traps them in their silent timeline. The silent timeline is where their manipulation hits a wall. They can't contact you without looking weak. They can't forget you without losing control. So they hover, stalking silently, lurking through old messages, watching from fake accounts. Their silence isn't peace, it's torment. They're stuck between pride and obsession, unable to move forward or backward. You've become their unfinished chapter. You, on the other hand, are beginning to heal. The silence that once felt empty now feels sacred. Each day without them strengthens your clarity. You start remembering the truth, the manipulation, the drama, the exhaustion. You no longer crave their validation. The narcissist senses this shift energetically, even from afar, and it unsettles them. They start to realize they didn't discard you, you outgrew them. In their silent timeline, They replay the relationship like a movie they can't stop watching. They obsess over what went wrong, but only through the lens of control. They wonder how they lost someone so devoted. They start to miss the admiration you once gave freely. But what they're really missing is the reflection of importance you provided. Without you, they fade into their own insignificance. They may try to replace you quickly, believing that a new supply will erase their discomfort. At first it works, temporary excitement, new attention, a familiar high, but soon they notice the difference. The new person doesn't feed them the same way. There's no history, no depth, no challenge, and slowly they realize what they threw away. But pride keeps them frozen. They'd rather suffer in silence than admit defeat. That's the paradox. They want you, but can't approach you. They want forgiveness, but can't apologize. They crave your attention, but can't risk rejection. So they stay silent, watching your life move forward. Each photo, each smile, each sign of peace is a reminder of their loss. The narcissist's timeline stops, while yours continues. Time stands still for them, but not for you. The longer the silence lasts, the more distorted their memories become. They start romanticizing everything, rewriting fights as passionate moments and control as love. This selective memory fuels their obsession. They convince themselves that no one else understood them like you did. It's not true, but it feels true to their fragile ego. The illusion becomes their comfort, and the silence becomes their prison. They may occasionally break the silence with breadcrumbs, small, meaningless gestures like a like on your post or random emoji. It's not love, it's bait. They're testing if the door is still open. But when you don't respond, the panic grows. Your indifference confirms their greatest fear, that you've truly moved on. The narcissist isn't used to losing power, and now they're addicted to the very silence they created. Their revaluation grows obsessive. They start to wonder if you're happier now. They may even try to mimic your behavior, posting quotes about growth or pretending to be spiritual. It's all imitation. They're not becoming better. They're trying to look better. But deep down, they know it's a lie. They're stuck in a loop of pretending to evolve while refusing to face themselves. The silence exposes everything they tried to hide. Without your constant reassurance, they're left with their emptiness. They feel invisible. That emptiness is what they were running from all along. It's why they need constant attention. It's not vanity, it's avoidance. Your silence forces them to sit with themselves, and that's something they've spent their whole life avoiding. Eventually, their need for control collides with their pride. They want to reach out but can't risk rejection, so they stay silent, trapped in their own ego. The longer they wait, the harder it becomes. They fantasize about you responding first, but it never happens. You've broken the cycle. You're no longer a character in their story. You've written your own. You might think they've forgotten you. They haven't. Narcissists never truly forget their sources of supply. They archive them. But when you refuse to return, you become the one story they can't rewrite. They check, they wait, they hope, but you remain silent. And that silence becomes the one thing they can't manipulate, fix, or destroy. It's their unfinished sentence that echoes forever. As time passes, they start to lose their grip on reality. They wonder if you ever really loved them or if you were pretending like they were. The irony is poetic. The manipulator becomes the one who feels manipulated. They project their games onto you, trying to make sense of your detachment. But the truth is simple. You loved them deeply. They just never learned how to love. When they finally realize you won't reach out, they enter a strange phase of regret mixed with rage. They're angry at you for doing what they taught you. Detaching, their ego can't accept that you're the one who ended the emotional contract. So they twist it in their mind, convincing themselves they left you first. It's their only way to survive the humiliation of losing control. Their silent timeline is filled with false confidence. They might act unbothered publicly, but inside, they're restless. Nights are hardest. That's when the facade fades, and the emptiness returns. They scroll through your old photos, reread conversations, and imagine alternate endings. They tell themselves they could win you back any time, but deep down, they know the door has closed for good. The revaluation stage turns into obsession. They start comparing everyone new to you, and no one measures up. They remember your empathy, your calmness, your understanding. The very qualities they once mocked are now what they crave. But you're no longer available to provide them. The silence becomes their punishment, not yours. It's the mirror reflecting everything they destroyed. Meanwhile, you've grown into someone they can't access anymore. The person they could manipulate is gone. You've built boundaries, found peace, and learned to love yourself. That evolution terrifies them because it proves you didn't need them. Narcissists thrive on dependency, but your independence exposes their weakness. The more you rise, the smaller they feel. Sometimes they'll try to re-enter your life under a new disguise just to check on you. They'll sound calm, mature, even spiritual. But it's still manipulation. They're hoping you'll believe the new version they're pretending to be. Yet the silence you gave them taught you how to see through facades. Their charm doesn't work anymore. You've become immune to their magic tricks. They hate that they can't predict you anymore. Narcissists need consistency to control, but your silence made you unpredictable. You're no longer reacting on cue. You're no longer playing your old role. That uncertainty drives them mad. They can't tell whether to beg, flatter, or ignore you. None of it works. Your peace is the glitch in their system, in their silent timeline. Time slows down. Days blur into nights, and thoughts of you linger like ghosts. They think about what you're doing, who you're with, and why you're not looking back. Each unanswered question becomes a wound, but they can't reach for healing, because that would mean admitting they were wrong. So they stay stuck, haunted by the ghost of someone still very much alive, someone free. You, on the other hand, are living in a new timeline. Yours is quiet, but full of growth. You wake up lighter, sleep deeper, and breathe easier. You no longer wait for apologies or closure. The narcissist's silence no longer hurts, it heals. It's the sound of boundaries finally holding. Their revaluation means nothing, because you've already revalued yourself. The longer the silence stretches, the more obvious the contrast becomes. You're thriving, they're stagnating. You're expanding, they're shrinking. The power dynamic flips completely. Once they needed you to validate them, now they need you to notice them. But you won't. You've learned that attention is the currency of control, and you've stopped spending yours on people who only take. Eventually, they begin to fantasize about reconciliation. In their mind, you'll reach out, say you miss them, and restore their ego. But that fantasy never materializes. You stay silent, and the silence becomes louder than any words you could have spoken. Every day you don't respond feels like rejection to them. They wanted power, but they taught you peace, and now peace is what protects you. The narcissist's pride keeps them from reaching out directly. They'll wait for a sign, any sign, that you still care, a like, a view, a small reaction. When none comes, they spiral. They start creating imaginary scenarios where you secretly still love them but are too proud to say it. They rewrite reality in their head because they can't handle the truth. Your silence is not revenge, it's indifference. As time passes, they try to fill the void with distractions. New people, new projects, new obsessions, but it never feels the same. The new supply doesn't mirror their greatness the way you did. Their attempts at connection feel empty, shallow, and deep down they know why. You didn't just feed their ego, you touched their maskless self, the part they pretend doesn't exist. That's why losing you feels like losing identity. Their revaluation becomes self-destructive. They may stalk your posts, analyze your words, and even mimic your lifestyle. If you start healing, they'll suddenly talk about healing energy. If you grow quiet, they'll post about protecting peace. It's imitation, not growth. They're not evolving. They're trying to copy the version of you that they can no longer control. But no copy can match authenticity. The silence between you becomes a mirror of contrast. You move forward in acceptance. They stay trapped in pretense. You forgive and release, they obsess and regret. Narcissists live in denial because truth burns. Your calm exposes that denial. That's why they sometimes hate you even more after you leave. Not because of what you did, but because you became everything they pretend to be. If they do reach out, it won't be an apology, it'll be a test. They'll say, I just wanted to see how you're doing, pretending to care. But their real motive is control. They want to know if they can still influence your mood. Your response determines their power. That's why silence isn't cruelty, it's clarity. By not responding, you're not ignoring them, you're honoring your peace. Inside their silent timeline, time becomes a loop. They revisit every stage of your connection, idealization, devaluation, discard over and over. They feel nostalgia, but can't admit regret. They crave your presence, but fear your boundaries. They want to return, but only as long as they're still in control. It's a tug of war they can never win, because the person they once dominated has disappeared. Your silence also exposes how fragile their power truly was. When the source of supply stops reacting, the illusion collapses. The narcissist realizes their control existed only because you allowed access. Without your energy, their confidence fades. They start to see themselves clearly, and they don't like what they see. For the first time, the mask doesn't fit anymore. As months pass, they might try to recreate you in others. They'll seek partners who resemble you in looks, habits, or voice. It's eerie, but it reveals something profound. They don't miss you as a person. They miss what they felt when you were around. But emotions based on control are never sustainable. Each imitation fails, because what they really want, your peace, your empathy, your depth, can't be copied. In their silent timeline, the narcissist lives in emotional purgatory. They can't return to you, and they can't fully move on. The world moves forward, while they stay stuck between fantasy and reality. You've become a ghost. They can't forget, not because of what you gave, but because of what you took back, their sense of control. And without it, they're lost in their own emptiness. Meanwhile, you're thriving in ways they never imagined. You've learned that silence isn't emptiness, it's power. You've learned to find peace without apology and love without permission. The growth they mocked is now your greatest revenge. Your glow doesn't come from spite, it comes from healing. And every bit of that healing makes their silent timeline even quieter. You begin to realize something deeper. The narcissist never truly discarded you. They discarded their chance at real connection. You were the only one who saw them clearly and still offered compassion. Losing you wasn't just losing a partner. It was losing the only mirror that reflected both their darkness and their potential. But they'll never admit that, because denial is easier than change. They might try one last act, a grand gesture, a dramatic message, maybe even pretending to confess their mistakes. But it's too late. The words that once hypnotized you now sound empty. You see through the performance. Their timing betrays them. People who truly grow don't wait until silence hurts to act. The moment you feel nothing, when they reach out, you'll know the cycle is over. The narcissist remains stuck in what can be called the silent timeline. It's where every victim they discarded lives rent-free in their memory. They return mentally, replaying what they lost but never learning why. That's the tragedy of narcissism. They remember every person who loved them, but they never evolve enough to love back. They live haunted, not by ghosts, but by their own reflection. Your silence, on the other hand, becomes sacred. It's the barrier that keeps toxicity out and peace within. It's your way of saying, I'm done explaining. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means mastery. You don't need to prove, plead, or you've learned that closure doesn't come from them. It comes from knowing that nothing they say now could ever undo what they did before. If you ever doubt whether silence matters, remember this. Narcissists crave attention more than love. Your attention was their lifeblood. Taking it away forces them to face the emptiness they've always been running from. Silence is the mirror they can't escape, the consequence they can't control. In the absence of noise, they finally meet the truth, and it terrifies them. You no longer wonder what they're doing. Their timeline isn't yours to follow. You've stepped into a new chapter where your peace matters more than their apology. Each day, your silence speaks louder than their games. It says, I've learned the lesson, and that lesson will echo in every relationship that follows. Never again will you confuse intensity for love or attention for worth. By now, their revaluation turns bitter. What started as longing becomes resentment. They'll tell others you were different or hard to forget. But underneath that bitterness is admiration they can't express. You became untouchable, not because you played harder, but because you stopped playing at all. They revalued you too late, and now your silence is the proof they can't rewrite. The silent timeline never ends for them. It's the purgatory of narcissists, the endless loop of remembering the people they broke and wishing they could re-enter lives that no longer want them. They'll move on physically, but emotionally, they remain trapped, replaying your absence like a song stuck on repeat. Their punishment is their own mind, and the silence is the soundtrack. In the end, you walk forward untethered. The narcissist stays behind, stuck in their timeline of regret and delusion. You've reclaimed what they feared most, your self-worth, your calm, your independence. They revalued you, but you outgrew them. And now, the silence that once hurt has become your greatest power, because peace, once earned, becomes something no narcissist can ever take away again.